don't get it twisted. Lamont Peterson has only defended his IBF 140-pound title 3 times since he beat Amir Khan for it back in 2011. Danny Garcia is getting a lot of heat right now because his fight with Lamont Peterson on Premier Boxing Champions, NBC, the new Haymon boxing series. It's not a tournament, you know. It's a series of boxing events that's going to happen over the next 2 years or so. So as it stands right now, you got the first initial card, which is going to be Robert Guerrero versus Keith Thurman, then Adrien Broner versus John Molina, and then Abner Maris on that card. Then you got another card that next week, or that same week, I believe it's that Friday, where you got Andre Berto versus Jose Zito Lopez, and then Sean Porter versus Roberto Ortiz. Then you got, I forgot who else is supposed to be on that card. But then the next major card after that is now official date in the Barclays Center, April 11th, 2015. You're going to have Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson, Andy Lee versus Peter Quillen. Now, here's the funny thing about that card. That card's got a lot of stuff going on with it. You know why? It's because the WBC has ordered that Danny Garcia, if he defeats Lamont Peterson, you know, well, actually, no, because he's still going to be champion. You know, win or loss against Lamont Peterson at 140 pounds. He's got to fight Viktor Postol next, because remember, Viktor Postol was paid to step aside when the WBC ordered a purse bid for him versus Danny Garcia, and Bermane Stiverne versus Deontay Wilder. Bermane Stiverne versus Deontay Wilder happened, but Viktor Postol took a payout and stepped aside for the moment. So a part of that agreement was that at Danny Garcia's next fight, Viktor Postol, because of the agreement, would fight on the undercard of Danny Garcia's next fight, you know, to basically showcase him as being a #1 contender for that belt. Now, what is left to be, what is confusing right now is, since this fight is not at 140 pounds, it's 10 rounds, 143-pound catchweight. If it's not at 140 pounds, does that mean that Viktor Postol has to wait until Danny Garcia defends his title, you know, that 140-pound title, you know, and then be on the undercard of that? So, you know, I just don't know. It's kind of a confusing situation. But from my understanding, Viktor Postol is supposed to be fighting someone on this card for exposure reasons, and also part of the agreement for why he was paid to step aside, you know, and the purse bid not go on to force Danny Garcia to even fight Viktor Postol or accept a buyout. Keep in mind that that Viktor Postol, if I'm correct, is co-promoted by Top Rank Boxing. So now that part's out of the way, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what about Lucas Matthysse? The WBC has also ordered that after Viktor Postol, Danny Garcia has to fight Lucas Matthysse, partly because why? It's because he fought Rod Salka, you know, and didn't defend the title. And then he fought, then he's fighting Lamont Peterson and not defending the title. So basically he'll have 2 back-to-back mandatories. We still don't know yet if Danny Garcia can still make 140 pounds. I think he can, but you know, I think it would kill him. But at the same time, I guess they want this fight to be at a comfortable weight, and also they don't want no issues as far as a fighter missing weight, or, you know, any controversy of that sort going into a fight when you're trying to get, you know, a NBC, you know, event off the ground. So it's still not known if Danny Garcia is staying, you know, at 140 pounds. But the way I see it and what I've been hearing is that Haymon has all his fighters, or majority of his fighters, set up to be next in line for title shots, or within the top 5 or close to being mandatory challengers. So I'm thinking that he wants Danny Garcia to hold on to that belt as long as possible. So if Danny Garcia vacates, it would be Adrien Broner, if Adrien Broner continues to win throughout this year, versus somebody, most likely it would have to be, remember, you got Lucas Matthysse. Now here's the thing. The WBO is kind of like an outcast a bit. I know this sounds kind of harsh, but when it comes to WBC, IBF, and the WBA, they're allowing their fighters, that hold their titles, you know, to fight for mandatory. So basically, you can be an IBF #1 contender, and then the WBCs, that'll be a big fight. They'll approve you to be a WBC #1 contender too. You know, so they're allowing stuff like that. Or if you're an IBF, like if you're a WBA champion, you can fight to be the #1 contender for a WBC championship, like Gennady Golovkin did. To whereas with the WBO, Lucas Matthysse is going to be fighting Ruslan Provodnikov next. They're working out the last details. But if he goes that route, and goes after the WBO, which will be, if he beats Ruslan Provodnikov, which I think he will, then he'll most likely be fighting Terence Crawford next for the WBO title. Or Chris Algieri, depends on, I don't know how they're going to work it out. That's still a cloudy situation. But if he goes the WBC trail, then he'll get his rematch with Danny Garcia. But remember, he's a Golden Boy fighter. And this whole Golden Boy Al Haymon thing, we still don't know if they're going to be working together yet, as far as, in the future on cards together. I don't know if the Al Haymon Golden Boy thing is a bitter split or not. Why? Is because especially what happened with this Leo Santa Cruz thing over, over the last couple days. So it's tough because what I'm trying to get at is that it seems as though this the Premier Boxing Champions, it's not a tournament. It's a series, but also for exposure of the boxers and fighters are being allowed to not defend their titles. And it's just like, well, there's got to be some type of end game because the WBC and the IBF haven't been playing when it's been coming to their mandatories. They've been making their mandatories. So I'm thinking to myself, they must know something, So I'm thinking, we're thinking Danny Garcia is being babysit and giving the easy fights, in my opinion, after Lamont Peterson. And Lamont Peterson is a very tough fight for him because remember, Danny Garcia has won against guys that he's completely, pretty much destroyed. But Lamont Peterson is a body, well, we'll put it this way. He's a pressure fighter. But a pressure fighter, unlike Danny Garcia, has fought before. So, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if Lamont Peterson doesn't get stopped, which most likely he probably will, then he has a good chance to upset Danny Garcia. But it's a win-win situation because both fight. If Lamont Peterson wins, he'll be able to say he beat Danny Garcia, but Danny Garcia will still be champion at 140 pounds. So, like I said, the whole thing is just cloudy. It's a weird type of situation, but at the same time, I'm just happy to see the fights, and I'm just wondering what's happening with that 140-pound title because now, we're going to be approaching a year before he probably defends it again. But I don't think 2015 is going to be easy for him now. So as far as NBC, you got to understand that pulling that, I believe it was like 800 or close to 900,000 homes he reached when he fought Rod Sulka. NBC, you got to think that they're wanting 5 million. 6 million, 8 million, 9 million views per event, and that may be a small number, but and that's high. So when it's come to it being nationally televised, they want major views. And you also got to think that these fighters have to be paid as well. So when you look at, I believe it was the Contender used to pull anywhere between 4 million and 8 million, 8 million households per episode. To whereas in PBC, like if PBC is only pulling 1 million houses, which I doubt, it's going to be somewhere between, I'm thinking 3 and 6. If it's pulling something like that, then that's a flop, a complete flop for national television. And they're going to be kicked off quickly. So, don't be surprised when you see like the ratings and seeing some shit like 7.8, million people tuned in and stuff like that. Remember, the purpose of the PBC right now was getting off the ground. They have to provide for exciting fights. It's fights where people tune in and say, oh, I'm going to tune into this next week. And I'm thinking to myself, then they're going to start, putting in the title shots. The title fights sometime around the end of this year, or more high stakes fight sometime around the end of this year and early next year. But right now it's just getting it off the ground because they want people, when they grab their remote, to be flicking through the channels. When they hit NBC, they want people they want to see somebody getting beat up or somebody's or basically they want to see excitement. Something that keeps them stuck right there on the channel when they say, oh shit, there's boxing on NBC. I'm talking about for people who don't follow boxing, who don't know what PBC is, or who Al Haymon is, or who people who haven't watched boxing since it used to be on national television 31 or 32 years ago. So that's the target audience that they're trying to get to whereas in us boxing fans, they're appeasing us to an extent, but at the same time, they know they can be providing better fights for us. But I do look at the business side of things, and that's why I'm not so harsh on what they're doing yet. It's just about, how it happened, how it continues to play on. So, for example, I'm confident, Well, put it this way, I'm not saying confident, but I feel that we would see Danny Garcia versus Adrien Broner on NBC. I feel that that's a fight that would be made. I don't feel that Haymon would try to stop that fight. Because from what I'm seeing from him, he knows right now that, okay, I got all you guys now. Now we're going to see who's who. So, and of course he can use other fights, to also sell as well. But like I said, when you're on national television, it's all about pulling in the numbers. So Danny Garcia, he's got to go out there. He's got to literally, not literally, but basically go out there, put Lamont Peterson in the body bag. And I'm not talking about death. I'm talking about sitting in, home, broken ribs, all that. He's got to knock him out, So Danny Garcia has a lot to prove to fans, even though he may not think so. But at the same time, he's not comfortable on social media or anywhere when it comes to videos. He may be cool, like, all right, I already know what to expect. But at the same time, that can go away. Remember, he was a hero, not even a year ago. Not even a full year ago, he was a hero. So in order for him to get that back, he's got to start literally beating people the fuck up. Now, he did exactly what he was supposed to do against Rod Salka. He got him out of there in a bad way, put him to sleep. But when it comes to Lamont Peterson, you got, like, if Matthysse knocked him out, you got to go out there and beat Lamont Peterson for, quickly, or you got to go out there and you got to beat him half to death for 10 rounds. So the controversy is, as I said, the fight is official for Barclays center Andy Lee versus Peter Quillen for the WBO title. Is going to be on the undercard. There's going to be one more fight. We don't know exactly yet. I was hoping that we'd get Billy Joe Saunders on the card versus somebody, but we just don't know yet. So it's going to be 10 rounds, 143 pounds. After that, Danny Garcia must defend his title against Viktor Postol. And then after that, if he beats Viktor Postol, then Lucas Matthysse. So this guy's got a crazy schedule if you really, really think about it. T-Street controversy, and then not to mention, you can't leave those Mauricio Herrera problems out there. You got to take care of that. T-Street controversy line.